Welcome to the Sacred Partnership Podcast, where relationships become the emotional, erotic, and spiritual adventure of a lifetime. I'm your host, Sarah Olivia. I'm a certified relationship and sex coach, a practitioner and teacher of the neo-tantric arts, and a lifelong seeker on the spiritual path. I know from my own decade-long partnership that the depth of connection, the level of mind-blowing intimacy, and the feeling of sacred devotion with a beloved, all of the reasons why we get into a relationship in the first place, these require intention, practice, and skill. And this is what I'm teaching here. Each week, I'll be weaving ancient wisdom, the most impactful relational teachings, as well as my own lived experience on this path, so that you and your beloved can create a partnership which feels rich with aliveness, truth, and devotion. So get comfy and let's dive in. Welcome back, loves. I'm so excited to share this episode with you, and I know that this is going to be something that can literally transform your relationship if you listen to the entire episode and action even 20% of what I share today. I want everyone who listens to the podcast, who watches the podcast, and engages with this work to be able to create incredible partnership and sex lives ASAP. So I'm going to be rolling out the most fundamental and impactful teachings in the very beginning of the podcast journey. So buckle up, take out a pen and paper, maybe. Just saying, there's going to be a lot of gold in this episode, and I'm going to try and keep it as concise and coherent as I can. But I get very excited and go down a little bit of a rabbit hole sometimes. Our topic today is how to start having more sex again in your relationship, especially in a long-term relationship. I work with and speak to so many couples who absolutely love each other, who are really devoted to each other, but the sex just isn't really happening. It's not happening, and when it does, it's maybe a little bit forced, or maybe even just repetitive and feels like something you have to tick off a checklist. And that is not what we are here for on the Sacred Partnership podcast. I want you to be having sex that is wildly alive, erotic, exciting, orgasmic, and ever evolving. That is the vision that I hold for you, and it is what I invite you to hold for yourselves in your relationship. So I want to first break down what are the reasons why we stop having sex in our relationship, especially if we're in relationship with someone that we absolutely adore. We think they are the coolest person in the world. We think they look freaking gorge. And we love that person so much. Why do we stop having sex? So I want you to really internalize the fact that the broader systems that we operate in within our relationships, within our partnerships, and within our sexuality don't support a healthy, thriving, joyful, and shame-free sex life. So I just want to name that because I think it's so important that you take off any kind of burden of guilt, responsibility, shame, inadequacy around your sex life. Okay? It's not your fault. The messages that we are fed around our sexuality, how our sex life should unfold over the course of a lifetime with our partner, all of those things are wildly unsupportive and misinforming. So first, do away with everything that society and porn and kind of friendships as well often and family have told us about having a joyful, confident, and beautiful sex life. So the first reason that I see across the board that really prevents people from having a lot of great sex is what is known as the desire imperative. The desire imperative is the societally wide idea, the very accepted idea that sex should happen spontaneously between two people over the course of a lifetime. That we should spontaneously and urgently desire our partner and need to regularly rip each other's clothes off. Sex should not need to be planned, shouldn't really need to be talked about other than having like wildly hot, dirty talk in the moment. and everything should run really smoothly. And if those things don't happen, either you are broken or your partnership is broken and you don't have enough attraction in the relationship. Ugh, the heaviness, the misinformation, that message that we mostly all grow up with is genuinely something I would like to destroy with a proverbial hammer. So smash the desire imperative in the face. If that is the reality of your relationship, beautiful. That is also not wrong. But for the vast majority of people, that is not how desire works in long-term partnership. And if you are listening or watching and you're like, yes, this is not how my desire works. This is not how I experience sex. This is not how I experience my sexuality. You are not broken. That is so normal, okay? So normal. So the next reason why I see many couples stopping having sex in the long run can be incredibly painful, because this is a dynamic that builds up over time, and it is a dynamic that is fundamentally rooted in a desire for connection, but a lack of understanding of our partner's desire type and our partner's needs. So what will typically happen, especially in heterosexual relationships, especially in male-female partnerships, is we'll have the experience of, if the male partner, so obviously every single relationship is different. I'm talking relatively broadly, relatively generally. There is a higher proportion of women who would identify as lower libido in the relationship. I don't actually agree so much in that term. It's much more that their desire type is responsive and requires more time to be really activated. And then that the higher proportion of male partners, the higher proportion of men, will have spontaneous desire and will essentially be able to move from zero arousal to maximum arousal very quickly. That is, something I'm sure you're very, very familiar with. So the bristle reaction happens when we move out of the honeymoon stage, especially, and during the honeymoon stage, it's often the case that female partners will be able to move from 0 to 100 arousal much quicker and kind of in line with their male partners. And then once you move out of that kind of cocktail of hormones, it can often be the case that female partners will shift into their more natural desire state, into a more kind of responsive and slower building process of arousal, while the male partner will stay in this very quick to turn on and to turn off. This is very standard within masculine and feminine sexual energetics, and I can talk more about that in a further episode. But what happens is the male partner will try to initiate sex with the female partner, and because there is not enough time being taken for the build-up for the arousal, the female partner over time will learn to bristle and shrink away from physical affection with her partner. Because especially if the male partner only engages in physical affection, only initiates physical affection when he wants to have sex, she will associate any physical affection, any physical closeness with, I'm going to be expected to have sex and I'm not going to be given enough time and attention and arousal and stimulation in order to be ready for that to happen. And pussy owners, female-bodied people, really need time. We really need time, devotion to our pleasure, to our opening. And if we repeatedly experience sex that happens too fast, too hard, without enough care, that becomes physically repulsive to us. Okay? So we really need to take time. We need to learn to take time. And the bristle reaction is something that happens so commonly. It's something that our body learns. It's something that, usually the female partner's body will learn in order to protect. And then because of the bristle reaction, which of course the male partner is going to perceive, right? It's not in any way a subtle reaction that happens. She will physically shrink away when he comes towards her. He will experience more and more rejection. he will experience more and more rejection and will start to avoid initiating at all. Will start to avoid initiating any kind of physical affection at all, even if he really just craves connection. So this dynamic is incredibly common. It's actually not particularly challenging to unwind and undo, but I'm sure you might recognize it in your partnership. If that is you, it's normal, but it is something that needs to be unwound, because otherwise you are going to have a persistently really uncomfortable association with sex over the long term. You know what's even better than talking about sacred partnership? Practicing it. So I created a free sacred date night for you and your beloved. It's a 30-minute guided audio practice for you and your beloved to get emotionally naked together. And if you like, you can get actually naked too. Fall even deeper in love and maybe even lead into some epic and magical lovemaking. If this sounds like something you want access to, and I can think of no good reason why you wouldn't want access to this, you can head down to the link in the show notes or head over to saraholivia.com and click on the top bar of any page, and that will take you to access the practice. Have so much fun, enjoy, and let me know how it goes. Feel free to ask me any questions about that. Send me a message. I know that this one can be like really new information in the best way, but it can also be really confronting. So give me a heads up if you need support around that. The next reason why I see couples not having sex over the long term is, and this can be, you know, a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit triggering, kind of goes hand in hand with the bristle reaction, is sex isn't worth having. Like, the sex that you're having isn't worth having. There are so many things that we can be doing in our busy modern lives, and if the sex that you and your partner are typically having is not actually enjoyable enough to feel motivated to carve out the time and to actually put the literal energy towards having, it's not going to happen. Sex is very much a positive feedback loop. So when you have good sex and you feel satisfied, you're celebrating the pleasure that you're having, you're really kind of creating an upward spiral with your partner of, I want to do that more. I want to try different things together. That is the positive loop that we want to be in. But if the sex is not worth having, you're not going to have it. I do want to name the fact that most of us never receive proper sex education, like proper pleasure education. And also, we receive a heaping amount of shame around talking about sex and voicing our desires. We also receive a heaping amount of shame around self-pleasure. So many of us go into relationships really outsourcing our pleasure to our partner, expecting our partner to magically know what it is that we like, where we like to be touched, the pressure, the pace, all of it. We expect our partner to be able to play us perfectly like an instrument. If we cannot play ourselves, as it were, it's going to be incredibly difficult to have amazing sex. So don't blame yourself, but again, this is something that you can really take action around, and it will change your life. A relationship and a life full of erotic and beautiful, magical, connected sex is like living in Technicolor compared to living in grayscale. Final reason why you might not be having sex is the simplest. It might not be any of the reasons that I've just named, and there are also tons of other reasons why sex might not be happening, which can be individual, you know, related to either one of the couple or something about your dynamic together. So I really, really recommend, if you want to be having amazing sex, find somebody to support you through that, whether it is me or someone else. There are so many incredible professionals in this area, and it is the best money, time, energy you will ever spend in your life. But the final reason that you might not be having sex is very simply resistance. Sometimes we just become resistant to things that are really good for us, like exercise or meditating, right? I have no particular trauma or wound around meditation. Sometimes I just don't want to do it. I have no like massively negative experience with exercise, and sometimes I just don't want to do it, even though it's the thing that's going to make me feel the best, and it's the thing that I need to do. So sometimes there is a little bit of a discipline element to this, and this is really where scheduling sex comes in. This is where agreeing that this is happening and prioritizing it comes in. This kind of also goes a little bit hand in hand with the desire imperative, but general resistance, it happens, but it is still worth looking at and working through. Okay, my loves, let's talk about the essential mindset shifts that need to happen in order for you to start having more sex and better sex with your partner, with your long-term beloved. First mindset shift is that needing to work on your sex life does not mean that you don't desire your partner anymore, that you don't desire each other anymore. Working on your sex life is very, very similar to working on your fitness. If you don't work on it, it doesn't improve. If you need to work on your fitness, it doesn't mean that there's anything inherently wrong with your body. It also doesn't mean that you should really just be able to do 10 pull-ups without ever working on it. Like, these things take effort, they take time, they take learning. The idea that sex should just happen magically and perfectly with absolutely no thought, input, or training, development, conversation is just a fallacy. It's just a fallacy. So it really is like working on any area of your life. Whether it is languages, we don't just wake up fluent with in every language, right? Even our own language, right? We know our own language, we know our own native tongue, but we can also develop our vocabulary. We can develop our mode of expression so it is a more true, pure, and beautiful way of expressing ourselves through language. It's not only foreign languages, but sex, I would say, is almost like more like a foreign language, and sex with someone else, sure as shit, is like a foreign language, and every person that you will have sex with over a lifetime is like a foreign language. So it is worth becoming fluent in them. And I've kind of covered the next mindset shift, which is that we don't just know how to have sex well. So that is something that we need to learn. So I want to offer you that having a growth mindset more broadly around sex, having the idea that this is something that can grow and evolve forever, that there will always be a next and deeper level, that is the thing that is going to make your sex life fun and exciting and varied, and you're going to feel satisfied but always intrigued. So there is a growth mindset and a capacity to be curious and to feel like you are working towards mastery but probably will never get there, which is amazing. That is where the magic happens. That is always where the magic happens. And there are so many different layers within sexuality, not just positions, although absolutely try different positions, try different ways of touching each other, of exploring each other's body, try kink, try tantra. There are so many different ways that we can engage sexually that make it all so much more exciting. So have a growth mindset around sex and don't make it mean anything wrong with you. It is totally insane and wild, but as I said, this is the desire imperative, so it's nothing wrong with you. This is just what we are fed. It is insane and wild to think that we would not need to intentionally plan and work towards having great sex. Like, amazing holidays don't just happen. Amazing dates don't just happen. We plan them, we research them, we think about, what do I want to experience? What do we want to experience? And you figure out, what are the different things that need to be in place for that to be possible? Yeah. That is a healthy, fertile growth mindset for your sex life, and it will change everything. It is really about the excitement and the joy of exploring new, untapped experiences together, as opposed to saying, I'm just not really enjoying the way that you go down on me. So can we try and improve that? Shifting from the problem to the vision and the excitement is also so, so helpful. God, so much energy today, which is bizarre because I'm in the absolute final days of my cycle. I want to offer you some really clear habit shifts that you can start making in your sex life with your beloved, which will instantly improve your sex life. Number 1, please talk about it. Please talk about sex with your partner. This can be one of the most challenging things, especially if you grew up in a family that were quite repressed, quite full of their own shame. You know, your religious upbringing might make a big difference to your ability to talk about sex. And if that's something that you really feel like you have a blockage, especially around the throat chakra, do the work on that, because that is also highly linked to your ability to experience pleasure and express it. But if you're just a little bit shy, you just have to practice. Talk about sex. Talk about sex with your partner outside of when you are having sex. When you are in the kind of sacred ritual container of having sex, really protect that, because you are both in a beautifully vulnerable state. There is no shaming, there is no rejection. Obviously, you voice pain. You voice pain, you voice no, you have boundaries, which you express lovingly, carefully. But talk about what you want to experience in sex outside of the bedroom. Talk about what you desire. Talk about what you want more of. Talk about what you want to try, maybe differently, and really make it playful. Make it playful with your partner. Make it feel exciting, not like something is just wrong. Obviously, if there is grief, if there is disappointment, that is something that you collectively need to process, and also probably individually. That's totally understandable and totally fair. But when you are trying to create a vision and an action plan for a beautiful and expressed sex life, think about the vision and the desire, the potential. If you are feeling the soul level call to sacred partnership, if you want to walk the path of devotion and ever evolving aliveness with your beloved, the Sacred Partnership Portal is your invitation and your initiation. This 6-month journey is the answer to your feeling that there could and should be more to your relationship and sex life. The reality is that most relationships are operating on autopilot within a tiny spectrum of what we are capable of experiencing with our beloved. Sacred partnership is the key to unlocking a full spectrum, intentional experience of love, pleasure, and devotion. It is my highest offering, and it is the emotional, erotic, and spiritual adventure of a lifetime. You can reach out to me directly on any platform, or find a link to inquire in the show notes. Habit shift number 2. Slow the fuck down. Slow it all the way down. Especially for the female partner, especially for her. Go slow. Let her open slowly. Let her warm up slowly. Women on average need 20 to 40 minutes to be ready for any kind of penetration. Even a finger, right? That's not always going to be the case, and always listen to your body. Always listen to whether it is a hell yes or a I'm not so sure, like that sort of bristle, that contraction, that shrinking away. That's not your body saying yes, right? We really want to get very, very close and deep in the listening of whether our bodies are a yes. But in order to get to that yes, we really have to allow a no, and we have to slow down. Something that will really help with slowing everything down and creating more safety for her body to open up and feel like she is invited, but she is not forced, is to engage regularly in non-sexual affection. This is also how you're going to move away from the bristle reaction. Is if that is what you experience, if the bristle reaction that I described earlier is what you experience, engage regularly in non-sexual affections, like a makeout session right before bed, can change your entire relationship, where there is absolutely no expectation that it will lead to sex, to any kind of sex. So really bringing in the cuddles and the hand holding and the kissing. And for him, be okay with the fact that that's not going to lead to sex. And for her, learn to trust. Also, trust your no And know that it's totally okay for you to say no. Because when you know that it's all right to say no to sex, whether it's penetration or any flavor of sex, it feels much safer to say yes at the start to the non-sexual affection. And if it gets to a point where it feels like a no, then it's totally okay to say that. Creating that safety, that non-reactivity as well to a no, that it doesn't mean an inherent rejection. That also is something that can take some inner work. That is such an important step to creating more capacity for different flavors of interaction together over the long haul. Final habit shift. So important. This is kind of a mindset shift and a habit shift. So I guess the mindset shift is that sex does not equal penetration. Sex is all of it. Sex is all of it. Anything that feels sexual and pleasurable and like you are dropping into that space of eros together, that is all sex. Yeah. And I think it's so important to move away from the idea of penetration as the ultimate goal, to take penetration off the pedestal so that you can really open into the broader joys of what is possible. And when you take penetration off the pedestal, when you stop equating sex with penetration, I hate the word foreplay. I do not use it. All of it is sex. You take penetration off the pedestal, everything becomes so much lighter, so much more fun, so much less pressured. Let penetration be a bonus. Like, beautiful if that happens in your body really easily. That is not the case for everyone. That's not the case for every female-bodied person, and also not the case for every male-bodied person. Like, if you have ED, right? It can be so beautiful to just be like, oh, I can just engage in so many different ways of giving and receiving pleasure. So say yes. The habit shift. I know I'm flowing around a bit, but I hope you're following me. The final shift is say yes more often to sex in general and no more often to penetration. So say yes to getting in bed with your partner or wherever you want to have sex, the shower, the bed, whatever. Say yes to getting close to your partner, putting your skin on their skin and seeing what feels good, following the aliveness, the energy, the pleasure, how you want to touch, how you want to interact. And say no more often to penetration when it is a no for your body. This is huge. This is absolutely huge because it creates safety, it creates trust, it creates so many more avenues to give and receive pleasure. I can't have penetrative sex as often as I want to have sex with my partner. My body just needs time. That is how my body works. That's how my arousal works. And I know I'm not the only person who experiences that, right? I hope that this has given you so much permission to expand your entire relationship with sex and with your body and with pleasure and with your partner. I hope that it has given you some really concrete and helpful steps that you can start to take to move towards having a more regular, varied, delightful, and alive sex life with your beloved. If this is something that you want support around, reach out to me. This is what I do. I'm so excited for you and your beloved to start having the kind of sex that you deserve to be having. And I'm so excited to hear your questions, your feedback. Sending you so much love. Until next week. Sacred beings and beloveds, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Sacred Partnership podcast. Let me know what landed, what impacted you, what resonated, and what are you going to be integrating this week? I really genuinely want to know. I truly appreciate your support in this work. So every time you review, rate, share, or just generally spread the word about what I'm doing here, it means the absolute world to me and it really, really helps. So thank you. I'll see you next week. And for now, I am sending you all the love, sex, and magic in the world.